Payment processing seems to be getting more and more expensive, or at least that's the way that it feels. Well, there's good news in the market. There's a big trend that's been going on for several years now. You've probably heard of it if you're a business owner, especially a retail business owner, where you own like a retail shop or a restaurant or something like that. But it's even popular amongst contractors and other business types, where they find a way to pass through the payment processing fees to the consumer. That if they're gonna use a card and not use cash or check or ACH, then you let them pay for their own miles, for their own vacations, and all their rewards that they get for their credit card company, instead of you as the merchant paying for their vacations and their rewards and their plane trips and all of that stuff. So we're gonna go through the different ways that people are doing the pass-through deal here. And we're gonna make sure that you know that you have the right information, at least as of today's video, which we're recording on April 23rd, 2025, so that you don't get hit with fees. And let me tell you, Visa and MasterCard, they do have secret shoppers. They do go around. It's rare, but it happens. And what they do is they take pictures of people's receipts, pictures of people's menus, pictures of people's invoices to see, are they doing the pass-through in a compliant manner. So first thing is, let's go through the two main categories of pricing, all right? The first one is traditional, okay? And then the second one is, we're gonna just call it pass-through, okay? And so there's two main methods that we're gonna compare, and then under the pass-through category, I will go through the different ways that people are doing the pass-through. But over on the traditional side, what happens is, you as the merchant, right? Merchant pays the fees, okay? And so here's what ends up happening. If you had a $100 deposit and your rate is 3%, okay, or 4%, whatever it is that you're being charged, then when you get to the end of that, whether you're charged on a monthly basis or you're charged on a daily basis, you're gonna get a deposit of $97, okay, in this equation. If you are doing a pass-through program, right, then the consumer pays the fees, right? Your customer pays the fees. And again, there's several ways to do this, and we're gonna talk about those in just a second. But in this case, if you did $100 at 3%, then what ends up happening is your customer pays $103, okay? And you get a deposit of $100. So in other words, you charge $100 for your product, you get paid $100, done. Over here, you charge $100 for your product, you get paid $97, and that's how it goes. So neither of these is wrong, right? If you prefer as a merchant to stay on a traditional pricing scheme and just work the cost of payment processing into your pricing, then you can do that. If you prefer to pass it through to your customer, there are also ways to do this in a compliant manner. What's interesting about the pass-through program is that this is one of the few times where both the left and the right side of the political aisle agree that this is how merchants should be allowed to do it, should they choose, right? You're seeing conflicting information out there in the marketplace, on the internet, talking to other merchants and things like that, I'm sure. But what's interesting is, politically, on the left, right, we'll call it the bleeding heart side, they look at this and they say, hey, for the underbanked people, why should they have a merchant charge more just to cover the credit card processing fees, and then people that are paying cash and can't even get a credit card or are underbanked in some way, shape, or form are also paying the penalty to subsidize the rewards points and all that for the people that have those higher end credit cards and things like that. On the right side of the aisle, they say, hey, we're pro-business, we're definitely pro-small business. We think merchants should be able to price any way they can, as long as there's some sort of a disclosure or an honest way to present it to the consumer, so that consumers aren't being taken advantage of or misled. So as you can see, we're in good company here when you can find a bipartisan solution to a problem that we've been dealing with for the last, we'll call it 20 years where it seems like the merchant always gets the short end of the stick. So under the category of pass-through, there's 3 main ways to do this, okay? The first way is called a surcharge, all right? The second way is called a cash discount, all right? And the third way is called dual pricing, all right? And so I want to just spend a minute going through each one of these so that you can decide for your business which one of these would be right for you. Okay, so first things first. Surcharging is where you're going to add a fee for credit, okay? So what this means is if you have an invoice or a receipt, you're going to add a fee on top of whatever the price is. So if your invoice says $100, okay, you're going to add a fee, right? And you're gonna say the fee is, we'll call it $4. And so then the total ends up becoming $104, all right? There are some rules to surcharging, okay? Well, first and foremost, you can't do 4%, right? So the card brands have said, well, this doesn't look good for our brand. Visa says, we want people to use Visa. We don't want people to be hindered from using Visa, or psychologically from a marketing standpoint think that Visa is more expensive to use. And so they actually put a cap on it, right? So you can actually do only 3%. And so in that case, there's some control that they're putting on it. The second thing is you cannot surcharge debit. So if somebody comes in and they're using a debit card, you have to have a system in place from a software standpoint, either in your credit card terminal or in your POS software, that will prevent the fee from being charged if somebody presents a debit card as payment. And it does not matter if they're entering the PIN or if you're running it as credit or debit. A debit card is a debit card is a debit card. Period, end of story. If it is attached to a checking account and it comes directly, the funds come directly out of that checking account and not out of a credit account, it is a debit card. So that being said, there's rules. Under the surcharge, there is a 3% cap, okay? And you cannot surcharge debit. What this means to you as a merchant is that you are not able to completely recoup your fees through the surcharge program if you are going to do it in a compliant manner. Now, there have been many people that have been doing a surcharge in effect for a long time, right? And they don't get caught and all works out. But it's just like, people that skim on their sales tax, right? At some point, they're gonna get caught. And if they do in fact get caught, guess what? It's gonna be bad news for them. Well, there are fees and fines and all kinds of stuff for doing this the wrong way, right? You also are supposed to technically register with the card brands, and or if you don't if they drop the registration requirement, then you have to make sure that at least the transaction is coded so that when it sends it through to Visa, MasterCard, whoever, that it knows which portion is the actual dollar amount of the transaction and which portion is the surcharge. So enough about surcharge. We'll go through at the end and I'll tell you which program is my favorite, and then we'll go from there. I'll give you kind of like my top, my middle, and my least favorite. So the second one that helps you pass through fees is a cash discount program. Now, a compliant cash discount program is where you just discount cash, right? I know that sounds funny, but you've been to places and they say, hey, pay with cash and save. A compliant way to do this would be to talk to your merchant services provider, or if you need a new one, you obviously can call us at Champion Payments. You can use certain softwares and certain terminals that what they'll do is they will raise the price of everything, raise the price, and then discount the cash. So what this is in effect doing is it's giving you a way to recoup the cost and then discounting the cash. This allows you to recoup 100% of your funds because there is no limit to how much of a discount for cash you can do, and there's no limit to how much you can raise your prices. your prices are your prices, right? Your discounts are your discounts. You are not beholden to anyone on this. And so the going rate on a cash discount is 4%. And so you raise your prices by 4% and then you just lower it whenever somebody pays with cash. Now, one thing that is important to note here, right? The price that you present to customers needs to be the higher price, right? So you have to disclose the higher price. If you don't disclose the higher price, then you are in effect surcharging, right? Think about it. If my menu says $10, but the price for credit is actually $10.40 with a 4% surcharge, then I've really just added 40 cents onto the price that the customer saw, and then if they pay with cash, I discount it, right? So you could see how Visa, MasterCard would see this as a surcharge. In order to not be doing an in effect surcharge, you have to charge, or you have to disclose the higher price. So like on your menus, on your schedule of fees, things like that, you would want the higher price on there. One other thought to go with this. There is a way of doing cash discount that people were doing in the past, and many people still have this program. And if you do have this program, I can tell you that I have seen myself merchants be fined. First fine is $1,000. If they don't rectify it within, I think, the 30 or 45 days, they add $5,000 on top of that. And then it just goes up from there. I've seen, I've heard, I should say, those I have seen. The ones that I've heard of that I haven't seen are like $25,000 fines. Per incident that Visa, MasterCard, uncovers or whatever. Between you, me, and the fence post, right? I believe that this will end up going to court at some point, will become a free speech issue of, merchants being able to charge and disclose things however they want. And that Visa doesn't push it in the courts right now, and they don't really do a lot of this, mainly because they do not want to go to the Supreme Court because they'll lose. Of course, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a legal expert, this is not legal advice. All right, so disclosing the higher price is important here so that you don't end up with a thing. And you cannot do what we call a non-cash adjustment fee, all right? So they used to do this non-cash adjustment fee, all right? This is a no-no, because what you do is you add a non-cash adjustment and then you just discount it off if they pay cash. Well, that's essentially what they're calling an effective surcharge. And then if it is an effective surcharge, you are subject to the surcharge rules of not surcharging debit and having a 3% cap. All right, last but not least is dual pricing. Dual pricing is where you have two prices for everything. This you've seen at like a gas station. I think many times where they have on their, their billboards, right, a cash price and a credit price. This is just as simple as that, where on all of your labels, on your menus and labels, and wherever you disclose your pricing, you have two prices. And what this does is it allows you to then bypass both of these, because then the customer is going to know already, right? What's the point in this? The point is to incentivize your customers to pay with the tender that you want them to pay with. If you want to incentivize cash, you want to incentivize them to do one of these programs. But like if you're in a situation where you are unable to handle cash in your situation, then you're not going to want to do this. You're going to want to just stick with traditional pricing and work it into your pricing so that you don't ever get cash, right? You want to incentivize people to pay with card. Heck, you could even give a discount for card if you really wanted to, although I don't necessarily recommend it. There's a lot of places that only will take electronic payments. Places like this are places that pop up and don't have an established cash handling policy and have like volunteers or things like that. So like stadiums and big, events and things like that, because those types of places have, people that are temporary workers or something like that. They don't want them handling cash. A lot of them will only take electronic payment, credit card, debit card, whatever. And in those cases, you wouldn't want to do cash discount or surcharging or dual pricing. But if you have a established business that, has cash handling practices, then you can obviously do this on your own. So all of this being said, right, this dual pricing pieces work. You would need some sort of a software to help facilitate any of these. We have the ability to do all three of these programs. If you wanted compliant surcharging, you can do that. If you wanted cash discount, we can help you do that. If you wanted dual pricing, we can help you do that. And what happens then is, for those of you that do, $20, $50, $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month, I mean, when you're recouping $2,000 to $5,000 a month in credit card processing fees, I mean, imagine all of that money that is now back into your business that you can then do whatever you want with it. So I promised you that I would tell you which one of these is my favorite, and they go in reverse order. My favorite is dual pricing. The reason I like dual pricing is because it's completely compliant. It gives your consumer the knowledge up front so that you and your customer know what the deal is. If you are an online retail or e-commerce, or you're a contractor or something like that, you can take ACH as your secondary payment if you're not able to take cash, right? So you can do 2 electronic payments. You charge a fee for the credit, you waive the fee on the ACH, and it pushes them in that way, but you can give them 2 prices. Same thing here, cash discount, you can also do ACH discount. This would be my second favorite. We have programs that will take all your pricing, raise the pricing. We can even help you with managing the price so that when it does increase by 4%, that it comes into some round number of your choosing. And then also surcharging would be my third in line, but at least this one gives you the ability to recoup some of it. Now, depending on what your card mix is, if you do mostly credit, this will actually recoup a lot of your fees. But if you're in a place where you do mostly debit, this isn't gonna really do much for you. It'll do some for you, but not a lot. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have questions or something like that, please put them down in the comments, or you can email us at info@championpayments.com. We'd be glad to answer any questions that you have, free of charge, no obligation. And if you are looking for a way to do this and you don't currently have one, we'd be glad to help you. We'll put a link down in the description so that you can follow that and get into the ecosystem here at Champion Payments, and we'll get you squared away. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day.